After some more second half struggles for the Bruins last night, we got to look at the drawing board. What can change for the Bruins? I'll tell you on Locked On UCLA.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making it your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. So like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for your support. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On right now to get started. As we get started with Locked On UCLA today, the Bruins, well, an interesting one last night. Mick Cronin and the bunch getting off the schneid, finding a way to get a win 70-61 after leading by 16 at halftime. Washington got it as close as, I believe, 7 points last night. And the Bruins, who didn't make a single field goal at the end, last 3+ minutes, UCLA was able to hold off the Huskies, who kind of got red hot in that second half and were able to get a win. So UCLA pushed Washington State down to 13-11, 5-8 in Pac-12 play, which sets up the Bruins for a tough matchup in Washington State. I touched on that a little bit in the last episode, but for the Bruins, offensively, the second half struggles have kind of started. They've been around these last few weeks in Pac-12 play. Against Arizona, UCLA shot 34%, 12 for 35, hit only 2 of their 5 free throws, and went 3 of 11 for 3. And that's only because they shot so well the last couple of minutes, stealing the ball from Arizona, getting a couple layups at the rim, that shooting percentage was above 30% in the second half. Against USC, UCLA had 29% shooting percentage in the second half, had 18 turnovers, 10 of them in the second half. USC overall scoring 15 points off those turnovers, and that led to an eventual USC win, which gave the Bruins a 2-game losing streak ending the month of January. Then starting February, you're wondering, all right, they've got the Mari Bailey back. What's the starting lineup going to look like? And they brought Bailey back in the starting lineup. We'll touch on that. But the second half struggles again. 10 second half turnovers versus University of Washington. And the difference, as the reason why the Huskies didn't win this game, is because they only scored 5 points off of UCLA's 18 turnovers. If Washington took advantage of any of the Bruin turnovers and scored directly off of them, like USC did, the Bruins probably would have lost this game. However, they shot 40% right when Washington was on the cusp of coming back and winning this game. The Bruins hit a big shot, whether it was an Amari Bailey 3, a Tiger Campbell 3, just a needed bucket whenever you could get one. The Bruins got it in a variety of ways. And it wasn't like there was someone who took over in the second half for UCLA. Nobody scored more than 7 points, but of the people who played more than 13 minutes, everyone from the starting 5 all the way down to David Singleton in the second half, they all scored from 3 to 6 points. It's just that UCLA doesn't have that killing instinct, as Mick Cronin alluded to after the game. One, our two leaders turned the basketball over, and they practically let Washington back in the game by just careless turnovers, as the Bruins weren't able to take care of the basketball, while Washington simultaneously got hot, 6 of 12 from 3, one Cole Bajema getting loose, Keith Brooks Jr., Fuller the second, all scoring nearly 10 points in that second half or more, to allow the Huskies to scrap and claw in a game where the Bruins should have won this game. They should have. It did not dictate that. It was not dictated that way in the second half based on the Huskies' play and the lack of good play from the Bruins in the second half. The Bruins should have won this game by 20. Ironically enough, I believe the second half of the first time the Bruins played Washington and the first half of UCLA Washington this second round, they both finished, I believe, with identical 38-22 scorelines. However, the Bruins closed out Washington the first time and did not close them out the second time. And Washington's a weird team. You deal with the zone and some very athletic players, and they certainly did not go ice cold from 3. But the Bruins' offensive struggles have stemmed from Jalen Clark continually being silent offensively. He had 6 points in the first half, a little bit better shooting, but was quiet in the second half with 3 points on 104 shooting. Clark still filling the stat sheet, going from 9 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, only 1 turnover, doing a little bit of everything. But the player that stood out to me, at least offensively, was the fact that Cronin was kind of teasing us that he might not put Bailey in the starting lineup. At least that's what I got from his media availability leading up to the game, considering the zone. And you would think, Singleton, let his shooting prowess get him going, shoot the three. But he put Bailey in there, and I thought Bailey was impressive. That first half spinorama going for a layup, getting a little up fake in the second half for a three, drive by, pull up mid range jumper when the Bruins needed it, pulled up straight up for three, buried it when the Bruins needed a bucket badly around the 7 to 8 minute mark, I believe. So Bailey had 13 points, had like 10 points on 5 of 6 shooting, 6 of 9 shooting, 13 points. Very efficient for the freshman. So it seems pretty clear that maybe those foot woes were bothering him before he went out due to injury when he was struggling. I guess that's what I could. That's what I'm speculating, just speculation here, because he was struggling before he went out and missed a month due to injury. And it seems like, as Mick Cronin said, excuse me. Oh man. Excuse me. Wow. That was a choke in my own part. Wow. Excuse me. As we continue going, Amari Bailey was simply pretty good last night. Fantastic, as good as he could be in his second game back after practically missing a month of action for UCLA. Bruins still had 4 players in double figures, but none of those were Jalen Clark or David Singleton. So again, the second half woes, the last 3 games, UCLA shot under 40% in the second half and turned it over close to 35 to 40 times. Just between the USC game and the Washington game, they've turned it over 18 times in the second half alone between those 2 games. And for an interesting note, UCLA still forced more turnovers because Washington is amongst the worst teams in the Pac-12 at turning themselves over. They have one of the worst rates in the Pac-12. But UCLA, they just seem so tentative offensively. There's so many times I watch the game, I go back, look at it again. You can see guys open in the corner, and it just seems like sometimes like a Hawkes or a Tiger or whoever has the basketball is so tentative to hit a guy in the corner because you can see, all right, they're not the craziest of offensive rotation teams. And Bona isn't elite enough yet down in the paint to be a bucket consistently against teams in the post. And with guys in foul trouble like Hawkes was, sometimes you need other players to step up. And while Singleton and Clark aren't hitting shots at an efficient rate at this very moment, it puts a lot in the shoulders of a freshman Bailey and the longtime Bruin and Tiger Campbell. But there just seems like a lot of times there's a guy open the corner, jumping up and down, and there's a lack of court awareness sometimes for UCLA. Maybe it was just a few times, but I noticed it. They're struggling, and then they've got a guy open in the corner, and you're missing a guy open down low. You see Clark moving. Guys are moving in the right direction, getting in the right spots. Sometimes, one, they're just missing the shots. Two, they're just missing the guy and forcing the pass the other way, and the Bruins carelessly turn it over for one dumb reason or another. That's just something I noticed, that if you go back, look at the tape, look how many times you see a guy jumping up and down, and a Hawkes or maybe a Tiger Campbell just miss him, a backdoor cut, open for three, whoever it is. Couple times in key moments, UCLA missing some open players for shots. And that's not the whole story, because even that doesn't make the story that they can make the shot. But still, UCLA, with these struggles, have to figure things out. But it's clear, despite the Ken Palm efficiency ratings offensively, it's all because they turn defense into offense. And they're so dynamic defensively. Despite Washington getting hot in the second half, the Bruins still only allowed 61 points. So they can be so dominant for 20 plus minutes that can just take you out of the game completely. Despite how hot you get in the second half, the Bruins can cruise to a win. Didn't exactly turn into a cruise last night, but usually that's what they've been doing from the non-conference into Pac-12. In conference play, it's been anything but, which is why this Washington State matchup will be extremely, extremely, extremely tough. And I'll tell you about that after I tell you more about FanDuel. We're excited. FanDuel's our new official sportsbook. FanDuel Sportsbook, the new official sportsbook with Locked On, the sports betting partner, number one sportsbook in America. And they've got a no sweat first bet. If you want to bet and download FanDuel right now for Super Bowl 57, you can get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. Again, that's a no sweat first bet. All you have to do is just either bet money line, point spreads, who scores touchdowns. No sweat first bet. Just know that you have to download FanDuel.com/lockedon right now. Yeah, no sweat first bet. Claim it right now for Super Bowl 57. FanDuel.com/lockedon. The app is super safe, secure, and easy to use. Winnings are paid instantly. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. As we rumble on here with Locked On UCLA, the Bruins, all right, they're now on a win, heading into the toughest home game the Bruins will have for a couple of weeks now. UCLA still unbeaten, haven't lost since before COVID at home with fans, 12-0 this year. It's been quite some time, over 20 plus games, I believe, since they've lost at home with to anybody. And now here UCLA is playing Washington State. They got the Bay Area schools in a couple of weeks, and then they play the Arizona schools to wrap up the regular season at the beginning of March before the Pac-12 tournament. So that's what the schedule kind of dictates for the home schedule. So Washington State will be the toughest home game, arguably, until Arizona comes to town to end the regular season, which can be a crucial seed jostling battle between them and the Wildcats and potentially for first place in the Pac-12. Until then, UCLA, if they want to make those games count, seeding matter in both the NCAA tournament and the Pac-12 tournament. That can make a lot of help for the Bruins going forward as well. UCLA has to take care of business against a very tough to decipher Washington State team who suffered a 10-point setback to USC last night. The Cougars fell to 10-14, also 5-8 in Pac-12 play, just like the Washington Huskies are, but for very different reasons. Because they've beaten Arizona, they've beaten Arizona State, they've beaten USC, they've been fairly close to beating Utah. They've done it all practically without having a winning record. A team that's played UNLV in Vegas, Boise State in Boise, and Baylor in Dallas, Texas. None of those at their home arenas, and was within a 5 to 6, maybe 10-point range against all those teams who you could argue are fairly good teams. Whether Boise State in the Mountain West, you could say Baylor has been up and down this year, but they are back up recently in good times. And then Washington State has also lost by double figures on the road to Prairie View A&M, which we've detailed way back when it happened in November when all the Pac-12 teams were losing to suspect mid-major programs all around the board. But Washington State, you just don't know what you're going to get, as Mohamed Gay is just outstanding. 31 points, 12 rebounds. How do you compete with that? That's what he posted against USC last night. So what's this matchup going to entail for UCLA coming against Washington State? Well, first time out in Pullman, UCLA was extremely lucky to get away with a win. That's one. Extremely, extremely lucky. And that's because they played well down the stretch. Can you imagine if UCLA is playing the way it was now in that game back then without Amari Bailey in the second half of games? They were lucky to win that game. They probably would have won it if their recent play would have dictated how they could have tried to come back against Washington State. Either way, what UCLA has to look out for, one, is Mohamed Gay, who is just an absolute beast. He's on 3 straight double-doubles. The Cougars beat Arizona State, competed again with Arizona back and forth. And despite this being a 10-point win for SC, it was anything but, as the Trojans needed that home win to keep their NCAA tournament bids alive, right? And Washington State, they're a team who can easily make a run in the Pac-12 tournament. I believe them and Oregon could be a thorn in someone's side in the Pac-12 tournament and be a bid stealer, depending on a late run, which is why a home loss to Washington State will look ugly on the resume, but it wouldn't be just the weirdest win for Washington State this year. They've already won at Arizona, their only true road win of the year. So Mohamed Gay is where it starts. In the post, who could dominate, he had 31-12 against SC. Way back when the Bruins won 67-66 in late December of 2022, Mohamed Gay put up 18-18. So that's how physically dominant he can be, and he can maneuver the post, which is why this is a scary matchup. UCLA defensively in the post if Bona and the Bruins aren't up to the challenge against the Cougars. However, what the Bruins do have, which they did not have last time, is Amari Bailey, who looks to be healthy and playing well offensively, showcasing the slam, the athleticism, has had double figures in back-to-back games against a zone, against USC, two very different defenses, two very different teams, has looked healthy and even better one game to the next, and being a key focal point in that win last night with 13 points, second in the team for the Bruins against the Huskies. with 13 points on 6 of 9 shooting, although he did have that freshman turnover bug with 5 turnovers of UCLA's 18 turnovers. So the big thing is the Bruins have Bailey, which one thing, the Bruins are going to play Bailey. He's going to start. And while the Bruins were in a close one against Washington State last time, they had Will McClendon play 20 minutes off the bench against the Cougars. Will McClendon didn't even see a minute last night against Washington. He was doing a mighty effort when he was being used during the season, coming back off of injury. And Mick Cronin's talked about his journey fighting back from injury and a couple years off. But the Bruins will have a different lineup, which can also be a sign of positivity heading into this Cougar match because one of your better players in Amari Bailey is back and playing, which will take the spot of those 20 minutes occupied by a Will McClendon. And the 1 minute played by Dylan Andrews that game, those minutes have been flipped between Andrews and McClendon. And then hopefully Singleton or Jalen Clark can get their shot going again. Singleton had double figures against the Cougars last time. Another Cougar to look out for, in my opinion, I've talked about him in the most recent pod. I'm going to tell you about him again. Andrei Yakimovsky. When he's on fire from three, he can be a tough matchup, about a 6'8", 6'9" forward, and can be a very tough matchup for the Bruins. I believe 3 of the last 6 games he's had double figures, and when he does that, he hits about 50% from three. Had a couple of threes against the Trojans recently and had 9 points in 32 minutes. So if he goes off, he had 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 9 points. So Yakimovsky is easily, I think, a sneaky guy to look out for if the Bruins can shut him down. I'm not sure you can shut down Mohamed Gay, but Yakimovsky and the rest of the Cougars are the players you have to make sure do not go off whatsoever in order for UCLA to win this game. It's a tough matchup. UCLA barely won the first time, but I think they got it in them to win it once again. A Cougar matchup be detrimental to the seeding. Pac-12 title hopes with Arizona and USC lurking just from behind. So got to be careful and get this win on Saturday. I think the Bruins can, because I think the toughest game of these next 3 weeks is actually at Oregon, but Washington State can be a close second here on Locked On UCLA. That's my thoughts. Now moving on, we'll talk about, did DTR get a record? Let's clarify that. What record did or did he not get? What's the weirdness? We'll tell you about that after we tell you more about Built Bar. If you're looking for something that's healthy, delicious, doesn't have all the fat and calories, it's 100% real chocolate. Yeah, covered in 100% real chocolate. You've got to try a Built Bar. What makes them so good? Well, they've got flavors like churro. I want a churro and a chocolate protein bar. Yum. Peanut butter brownie, coconut almonds, all this awesomeness, 17 grams of protein, 4 grams of sugar, only 4 grams, and only 130 calories. Boom. I'm hungry, and we don't need to wait around to get a box. We can go to Built.com, order a box, or you can go to your local Walmart, Sam's Club, wherever you go, get a 4-bar box with the cookies and cream, get a 13-bar box. Again, churro, brownie batter. You'll thank me later. Run to BuiltBar.com and get yourself a Built Bar. Let's do it together. Rumbling on, segment 3 of Locked On UCLA. We'll make this short and sweet because, if you paid attention, it's come around the last couple of days that the news that DTR broke another record, broke Cade McCown's career passing yards record because of a stat issue back in the Sun Bowl. So I guess the only positive is that despite DTR leaving early and having to not play the rest of that game, that heartbreaking finish was, he was so close to breaking the record, practically a pass or 2 away, that Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who's been seen in the East-West Shrine Bowl, the seniors, all that, dancing with the kids in the Sun Bowl, saying, let's go, showcasing his arm in the game and in practice, he was able to break a record. So I'm not sure how you get a stat incorrection or miscalculation of nearly 15 yards, because he needed 285 yards in the Sun Bowl to break the all-time passing yards record from Cade McCown, excuse me. It's Cade McNown. What am I doing? What am I doing? Yeah, UCLA fans, just smack me upside the head. Cade McNown. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to read all the crazy records he has. UCLA with DTR broke the career passing yards record, career quarterback starts, career total touchdowns, total offense has that, complete career completions, has career quarterback rushing yards first, and then had a single season program record when it came to a completion percentage of 69.6%, just shy of 70%. as he was 6th in the country with that. So DTR showcasing, all right, whoever's the next quarterback, whether it's Dante Moore for 2 to 3 seasons, whether it's Slee to Moore, Garbers to Moore, wherever these quarterback battles lie, that is where they're having to pick up the mantle with this Chip Kelly-led offense from DTR, the dual threat ability. It was great to see that. We'll see what his draft stocks are, and we'll analyze those going forward, not today. But DTR did find a way to break that record. I'm not sure how. He beat Cade McNown by a couple yards. It was like, in the end, it was like thousands of something to 710. Let's look at this number. We're pulling it up right now. But incorrectly went from 10,710 to Cade McNown's 10,708. That's how close it was. And yes, it did take DTR more years and all the games and an extra bowl game and a late calculation, but he broke it. And I can tell you, after broadcasting a game recently, I did a basketball game where the final box score literally did not have a player who shot free throws in the final 3 minutes of the game shoot free throws in the final box score. So if you're wondering how this can happen, how they can just completely be inaccurate, well, one, kind of calculating yardage is a folly in its own right. It's not exactly completely accurate to begin with when it comes to yardage and everything. But in a game I broadcast, because I'm also a broadcaster as well, play-by-play, D1, they just completely didn't even put someone who had free throw shot. They gave him to the wrong player. So it's human mistake. It is kind of funny. It is weird, but it does happen. So it's just kind of funny how, after it's all said and done, more than a month later, Dorian Thompson-Robinson is now your career passing yards leader as a Bruins quarterback. And love him or hate him, I love the passion. I love the leadership, and I like DTR. You may not. You could say whatever, but just gotta love the kid and how he left it all in the fields and even was able to break a couple records at it. So that's what kind of wanted to explain. He broke the record a month later. Not sure I've ever heard something like that happening. Maybe the only weird thing I could say that's happened recently was the Duke women's basketball team played with men's basketballs in the first half of a game, like a week or so ago. Weirdness, sometimes it's sports. It's life. You laugh it off. You have a fun time, and we enjoy talking about it. And we'll be back next week with more Locked On UCLA episodes. Hopefully the Bruins get down the Cougars. Hopefully the women can take down the Arizona teams this weekend. Softball starts pretty soon. We'll preview that next week for sure. I've been teasing it. We're going to do it. And baseball the week after. We'll preview that as well. We're excited. We're pumped up. Go Bruins. UCLA fans, check out Locked On NFL Draft for more draft-specific coverage of the seniors, like the senior Bruins, or more NFL draft coverage to begin with, and Locked On College Basketball. Get those brackets ready for March. In the meantime, get your hands up. 8-clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Fight, fight, fight. Let's go. Go Bruins. Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer signing off. This has been Locked On UCLA. Go Bruins.